Fiesta Bowl. Let's talk about it.
All the
College
Tostitos,
football
baby.
playoffs. No, it's Verbo, sir.
I
Verbo.
know. It's so weird.
No, I got to
Yeah,
give it
I
up to
like
Verbo.
I like Tostitos.
I met a lot of the Verbo people there.
Oh,
They were
all
very,
right.
very nice.
Oh,
Very
shout out
accommodating to me.
Verbo.
I brought
There
my
you go.
son, Coop. He's been my watching buddy for all year long, Michigan Wolverines. And we were sitting there, and he was. It's amazing. He was 11 years old when the game started, and he's on Social Security now. That's how much he aged.
He aged.
I'm lucky to be alive. I'm lucky to be alive. Let me just sum it up. I am so proud of my Michigan Wolverine team, 13-0, going into the Fiesta Bowl. And absolutely, I thought they were going to win that football game. There's no doubt in my mind they were going to win it. And I was going to watch them in SoFi Stadium and take a trip down to 405 to watch my team in a national championship game. Absolutely thought that was the case. Certainly when Donovan Edwards, on the first snap of the game, burst free and then got caught from behind in a way that he didn't in Ohio State and in a way that he didn't all year long in the Big Ten. And I'm just wondering, was it rust? Was it ever? No, TCU is an incredibly talented football team. And they have speed. They have, brute force. They can lay the wood. They can block. They can hit you. And man, can they win, because they've got a big heart. Big purple heart, those Horned Frogs. And Michigan made way too many mistakes to win a football game against a stout opponent. 2 pick sixes and 2 trips inside the 3-yard line to come away with no points. I mean, that first drive, I thought we'd get at least 6 out of it. I mean, get at least 3. I thought Michigan would get at least 3 out of it. And then on 4th and 2, 4th and goal, he went for it. He tried some sort of Ann Arbor special. I don't know what the heck that was, but I'd like to take that play and never see it again. And then my guy, J.J. McCarthy, who's been playing terrific football. They don't get to this game without him. They're not 13-0 without him. And also the kid who I saw prior to the game on crutches, Blake Corum. He threw a terrible pass after Michigan got the ball back. And I know so much in the Michigan community has been made about how Harbaugh got outcoached in the first half of that game. I mean, they had a shot to score a touchdown on the opening drive. They played defense, got the ball back, and a terrible pass by J.J. McCarthy's brought to the house. Michigan's 2 interceptions, not brought to the house. Their 2 pick sixes put 14 points on the board. I mean, you want to talk about difference makers in a game like this? That's pretty much a difference maker. And then every single time Michigan tried to come back, TCU would just score in 1 snap of the football. But still, to give up 2 pick sixes and have 2 trips inside the 3-yard line, or from the 2-yard line and in, to come away with no points, you're going to lose football games. Certainly if the refs stink. And that is where I just have to address it. I have to address it. Michigan did not play better than the refs refed. They made too many mistakes. I've mentioned the mistakes that they made, and I've left off false start penalties. I've left off a ton of other issues. A ton. I'm barely touching on the mistakes that Michigan made that you can't make in a bowl game and just expect to make the national championship game. Man, the touchdown that they took off the board, I know that they parsed it down to the last frame. It did look like Wilson did not get in the end zone, like his keister hit the ground before he fell into the end zone. Just don't fumble the ball when you don't fumble the ball after this. That's my 2 cents.
I just don't see how that wasn't a touchdown.
Right now, we're showing a photograph where it looks like it's keister and the ball is across the goal line. I mean, a body part could have
because he didn't pitch the ball right off the bat.
Here's my issue with it. Okay, here's my issue with it. And it's made worse by the fact that Michigan, instead of sneaking it like everybody else has been doing, like taking 3 huge individuals and shoving the quarterback across the goal line.
TCU does it better than anybody.
Well, except they didn't do it against Kansas State. In their Big 12 championship game, they couldn't get it in from inside the half-yard line. And by the way, I was hoping Michigan would show some of the same defensive line resolve in that moment as Kansas State was able to pull out of their resoluteness in overtime of that game and couldn't. Again, I'm not saying anybody cost Michigan the game other than Michigan. And I think anybody on that team will tell you that. But my issue is if we're parsing things down to the last frame in replay at that moment, how the hell, when replay looks at the final hit of the football game, is that not called targeting? Now, my issue with targeting. It is way too open to interpretation. And one officiating crew's interpretation of what's targeting and what's not is different from another, and it is not nearly as consistent across a college football landscape as it needs to be. But you can't tell me that what happened at the end of that football game, where Michigan is doing a little pitchy woo-woo, it's going crazy, and the game is essentially over as Michigan's ball carrier falls down to the ground, and as he is falling down to the ground from behind, gets hit in the back of the helmet by the crown of the helmet of a TCU player that has no business even being in on the tackle because the game's over.
Right.
The game's just over.
Yeah, just let him fall down.
The game is over once the play is over. But the play's not over when the helmet meets helmet, and then they review it. And I think to myself, if they're reviewing it, it's definitely targeting. So we'll get the ball back with 20-some-odd seconds to go, needing 60 yards. It's a bleak scenario, but at least there's a scenario. And then come back and say it's not. What is more targeting than a player falling backwards and from behind gets contacted so hard his head looks like it's a bobblehead? That's a defenseless player being hit in the head. So if we're parsing in the middle of the game, we're not parsing at the end of the game because the game's over. I mean, what are we going to do? Put the players back on the field when the game's essentially over after Michigan made one last mistake, which is a snap that the quarterback didn't expect, hits him in the shins, balls all over the place. By the way, Donovan Edwards having the presence of mind to know that he's still behind the line of scrimmage so he can throw it to a teammate was, in retrospect, pretty fascinating to me. But come on. I mean, come on. So we're going to take a touchdown off the board in the middle of the game because, you know what? It's the middle of the game. Game's still being decided. We're not calling targeting because the game's essentially over, and we're gonna put TCU back on the field, and then there's going to be an uproar. Is it a spine issue? Is it really a spine issue? Because it can't be that wasn't a targeting play issue. So I got that off my chest. I say TCU was the better team. They deserve to go. And I can't wait to see them play with the house money against Georgia because they got house money. And all the folks saying Big 12's this, Big 12's that. One thing that they're not is the Big Ten. One thing they're not is a big-time team. They didn't even win their conference championship, didn't deserve to be in. Okay, that is a hell of a football team with a great coach who knows how to coach these players up and make them believe. That was amazing. They can hit you. They can run past you. They can run over you. They can run through you. So I say, well done, TCU. And thank you, Michigan, for an incredible season. I can't wait to see where you go from here. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.